Vanhelsing, the son of famous writers Ryder and Catherine Vanhelsing. I also happen to be the nephew of Christopher and Uvain Vanhelsing, as well as a good cousin to Evelyn. I had a normal life. Like most boys, I grew up liking race cars. And so, I went to my parents' races every time. However, in one terrible accident, Ryder accidentally crashed into Catherine, causing them both to die. I was still 13 when it happened. I grieved, as anyone should, but eventually picked myself up, being raised by an orphanage until I grew old enough to afford my own place and claim the money in the will that was given to me. During this time, I picked up racing and trained till I was like my dad. Heading into the season, I was already the talk of the town. I rose to the ranks pretty quickly and became a world-renowned racer. Evelyn and I used to race when we had time, but of course, these races stopped once Evelyn disappeared. After hearing of her absence, I rushed to the site of the accident to investigate, picking up whatever Evelyn left. I learned a lot about time and space. I felt as I never knew this side of Evelyn before, so I attempted to build a portal gun for myself, which worked perfectly. This would eventually become my new hobby, aside from racing.
I am Everest Abney Vanhelsing, formerly Everest Denali, an orphan from the mountains. Clara wasn't able to find a partner to settle with, but she really wanted a child, so she adopted me. We live a simple life in the mountains. Constant snow, yet our small little lumber business kept us company. During Christmas, Evelyn, Adrian, and Evelyn's parents always came to our place to play with me when we were younger. I love hearing Evelyn's ramblings about the history of Christmas, about Saint Nick, and of every other lore she learned from her dad and her academy. Adrian also liked playing snow fights with me. Unlike Adrian, Evelyn only ever saw me on Christmas, but regardless, her visits were still very special. That was until Evelyn stopped showing up. Similar to Adrian, Evelyn got so busy with her college that she couldn't go home for the holidays. I became very lonely by this time. My mother was slowly dying, and she was the only one I had left. So I decided to take over the business, growing our small lumberjack business into one of the best lumberjack companies of all time, Vanhelsing Lumberjack & Co., garnering over $20 billion in 1 year. Seeing me successful and also physically healthy, since I was getting more and more jacked with the wood that I was carrying, it made Clara so happy, she eventually passed in her sleep. Happy of all the life she lived and the son she raised. I, however, was heartbroken and distraught. And hearing the news of my Uncle Christopher and Aunt Uvain a few months later, I was destroyed. I isolated myself and went no contact with the rest of my known relatives, including Adrian.
My childhood wasn't as beautiful as it may have seemed. Growing up, my father was a con man. He used the Vaseline name for money and twisted and exaggerated their stories to get customers to buy his books. And of course, there was my grandfather. A lot of people rumored that he left because of love or a greater purpose. Not really. He was just absent during my father's childhood. But that still wasn't enough. We were still poor and trying to get by in our day-to-day lives. My mother passed away when I was younger, so it has just been my dad and me. I walked into the streets to steal food whenever I could, having to rummage bins and fight against bigger kids my age. It wasn't much. It was usually just food scraps, but I was content. Meanwhile, my father wasn't. Whatever money we got, my dad bought it for beer. He was always drunk, and the living room always reeked of alcohol. He wasn't abusive, but he was definitely neglectful. When I grew up, I rummaged the streets for machinery. I heard my ancestors used to build a lot of stuff, and I had gotten news of another relative of mine, Evelyn, rising into the charge as a new generation inventor. I wanted to get into her ranks. I was inspired by her words. We will not repeat the same mistakes. After months of stealing from the library in whatever way I could, I was eventually able to create a portal gun of my own. Sure, it was a little off and glitched, but it was mine. How it worked? While robbing some of the scientific lab's trash cans, I found an element that was hovering around me. Whenever I touched it, it changed the composition of my finger. I figured it was reality bending, and I figured this could work for my portal gun. I showed it to my father the very next day, and he seemed impressed, but not like what I expected. Because the next day, he sold that gun to a tourist without my consent for just a couple bucks. I had no worrying thoughts. My hard work had been sold by a man I considered my father. Though I didn't mind that I didn't have thoughts. After all, it made it easier for me to slice his head off with an axe and watch as the blood and guts spilled out. I was laughing. I was smiling. I was stabbing and destroying my father's body as if he meant nothing to me. Even after hiding his body, I was laughing. That night I had bought a syringe. Lost in my insanity, I made the magical reality-changing element as if it was my drug. If this thing could change and redefine stuff, why not give this ability to myself? I could destroy this rage world and give new order to it.